after I dropped that, I was like, I'm going to play Arkham Asylum. I got the Arkham games in a big bundle for pretty cheap because after I played the Lego Batman games, I was just kind of like itching. I was like, I just want to play more Batman stuff, but maybe not in like confined to the Lego formula. So I played Arkham Asylum. Always heard things about the game. I remember Arkham City coming out and that being a big deal. Haven't played that, but I finished Asylum last night. And that game is great. That is a really, really cool game. I realized a little ways into it, it's basically Batman Metroid. Like, it is very, very Metroid-y. Down to the way that, like, the upgrades work. There's this thing in Metroid that I've always liked, where the upgrades and the new abilities you get always have double purposes. They'll have some kind of use for combat and some use for exploration. So, the missiles, obviously, you could use them to shoot things, but they can also be used to open doors, open specific doors. Same with the hyper bombs and stuff like that. The morph ball bombs, they can be used obviously as weapons, but they can also be used to break parts of the environment or boost your way up and do morph ball jumps, which is cool. I think my favorite one would be like the freeze beam. Obviously, you can freeze enemies with it, but then you can use them as platforms to get up to places you wouldn't normally be able to. Everything has some kind of double purpose, with maybe like a handful of exceptions per game. But every upgrade you get ties in, it all intertwines together into the two things that the game is focused on: exploration and combat. And that's why I think Metroid games feel really good to me, is that they're very holistically designed. There's no fluff. There's no just like, yeah, this thing is kind of here, and it just kind of, it's sort of in its own little branch of the design. Like, everything works together to be a very focused experience. And that's really how Arkham Asylum feels, where like all of the upgrades you get have some kind of potential combat purpose, but also can be used for exploration. They are like consistently useful. This game came out at a time where licensed games were generally looked down upon. This is like 2009. They were looked down upon because, for the most part, they were basically just merchandise more than they were their own piece of art. They were just merchandise for whatever they were supposed to be promoting. And there were a couple good ones, there were some exceptions, but for the most part, they were just kind of trash. Nowadays, mobile game licensed games have mostly moved to the mobile platforms. And if something is on a console or on PC, kind of the bigger time systems, it's because someone had like an actual like good idea and they wanted to actually attempt something a little more ambitious. Might not always work out, but it's like a real game. It's not just like a piece of shit cash grab that gets thrown together on a tight schedule kind of thing, which is what it used to be like. And Arkham Asylum really changed the perception of licensed games. That was the game that I remember people going, whoa, it's a licensed game, but it's actually good? It's like, it's really good. And I think the real heart and soul of that is that Arkham Asylum is really focused on making a cool-ass Batman game. It is a really cool-ass Batman game, and it does everything that you'd want a Batman game to do. It's like there's the hand-to-hand combat, the gadgets, the detectiving, the solving mysteries and stuff. All of that is there. You get a bunch of great Batman villains. Not everyone, but there's at least like references and things here and there. Tons of cool touches. It's all taking place in this great, like, compact, very focused location. The basic premise is Batman has captured the Joker. He takes him to Arkham Asylum. The Joker escapes, and it turns out that he's been planning this huge plot where he's going to take Bane's like venom, like Bane's like evil steroids, and he's going to pump it. He's going to pump a bunch of his goons up with it, and then turn everyone in Gotham into monsters, into big Bane monsters. Now Batman has to stop him. And you're exploring the various... Arkham Asylum is split into 3 different interconnected islands. Arkham Northeast and Northeast and West. With a couple... each island is like a big... It has like a decently sized open area. And then there will be maybe 1 or 2 buildings on each island that are their own more intricate areas where stuff happens. You go there to do stuff. Let's see. I mean, what do I even say? So, I guess I can talk about the 2 main dimensions of the game are the combat and the exploration. I'll talk about the exploration first. So, Batman feels very heavy. He's a very weighty character. The thing about this game kind of kickstarted the meme of it makes you feel like Batman, but it really does, right? Like, there's a reason that became such a cliche, was because, like, no, yeah, like, it really, like, everything, there's so many little mechanics and little moves that you have that are like, this is in the game because it's a thing that Batman would be able to do. And it's worked into the mechanics in a way that makes sense. So, you explore around, you can parkour over stuff. There is a very nice feeling. It's basically just the mobility button. You can run up to a wall, and if there's a ledge within reach, you'll leap up, grab onto the ledge, and then hoist yourself up. You'll jump over things. You can crouch down to go into vents and stuff. You can grapple around to tons of different points and hoist yourself up from there. You can grapple onto gargoyles and, like, it's great. There's, like, moves specific to being on gargoyles and stuff. Yeah, the mobility feels really good. I think from what I remember, it gets better in Arkham City, where you can do, like, glide. Oh yeah, there's a glide. You can do, like, glide into grapple hook and back into glide and stuff. And I'm looking forward to checking that out. It's like the one thing missing from this game, but there's a great flow to the movement once you get used to how heavy and just heavy Batman feels to control. Very satisfying to move around in the game. There is, like, one thing that I will say in the exploration that it's, like, kind of a gripe. Okay. So you have detective mode in this game. Detective mode is you press a button and you go into a mode where objects of interest are highlighted. Enemies, you'll see them with, like, X-ray, stuff like that. Excuse me. Grapple points will sometimes be illuminated. Stuff that you can interact with is highlighted. Stuff like that. I like the idea of detective mode, and I think the way that it's implemented gameplay-wise is cool. It's used to, like, find secrets and stuff. There's a bunch of, like, Riddler... the main, like, collectibles are all these Riddler secrets, where every single area has, like, a bunch of different Riddler puzzles. Some of them are things that you have to, like, scan in detective mode to take pictures of, and that'll, like, solve a little riddle for the room. A lot of them are, like, trophies that you have to find in, like, spots hidden around the world. Stuff like that. And you do a lot of that. You find a lot of that stuff with detective mode. The problem with detective mode is that it totally fucks up the game's art style. Which is weird, right? It's not a gameplay problem. Gameplay-wise, I think it's fine. Like, it is, it turns you into Batman looking for clues. And that's a cool feeling. But here's the thing is, like, this is actually a very nice looking game for the most part, with a few exceptions. This game holds up visually pretty well because, yeah, it does have kind of dated graphics at this point, but the art style is great. The choice of colors, like, it's moody, it's gothic, it's dark, but it's very stylized. Lots of, like, greens, ambers, blues sometimes, like these reds, like gothic, creepy, spooky color palette. and it has a great there's very atmospheric lighting in certain rooms and areas, and it's a good looking game just from its art style alone. Like I think it holds up really well. And then you turn on detective mode and it's blue. Everything is blue. And there's this grain filter. There's like this very subtle grain filter over everything. And yeah, it was crazy to me how, I'm running around in this great looking outdoors area. The lighting is amazing. The colors are amazing. Then you turn on detective mode for a little bit to go find something. Then you turn it back off and you're like, oh, wow, this place looks good. Wait, hang on. I forgot that this game looks good. And it's just like this, I wish there was there was some kind of solution to this that didn't compromise the art style. The best idea I could come up with was like, what if it was more like a sonar, like a bat sonar type of thing where you press the button to like put out a signal. I don't know if maybe holding it down would get too annoying or something. I don't know. But like it would only highlight, my thing is like, what if it only highlighted the objects of interest or something, right? Like the little boxes that you can hack, or the grates that you can remove and things like that. What if it only highlighted that stuff? But then there would be like no reason to turn it off. So that's why I thought like maybe you could just, send out a little sonar and it would be illuminated for a little bit. But like, would that get annoying to have to keep doing that over and over again? I don't know. Maybe it would be like the scan visor in like Metroid Prime or something. Yeah, so it's like it's a good idea, and gameplay wise it's not a problem. It's just the visual thing. I just wish, because the atmosphere is so good. Man, the art team killed it on this. I loved getting all the collectibles, and where you would get character bios and all sorts of obscure Batman characters. And you'd get these little concept art sketches. I don't know concept art, but like official images of them, official drawings, illustrations, and they're all like, the art style is great, and I love just how all the characters look, and just those little 2D sketches. It's great. The collectibles in general are just really fun to get. I ended up getting all of them. It's not too difficult. It's not too difficult to get every single Riddler challenge in the game. You get progressively more and more upgrades as you go throughout the story. And by that time, I was doing them, if I saw something, I would explore it. So if there was a Riddler trophy available to me, I would usually find it. And I just had to kind of go back. Once I got the final upgrade that the game gives you, which lets you destroy breakable walls from afar, without having to be standing next to them, because some of them you can't stand next to because they're up on a ceiling or they're raised up on a wall or something like that. Once I got that, I just combed through every area that I still had to find. I hadn't completed 100% yet, and finished in a pretty timely amount of time. 17.6 hours for a first playthrough. Not a very long game. I feel like it could have even been longer, but definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. And I want to talk about the combat. I think that's pretty much everything for the exploration bit. The combat in this game is really fun. This was the first game that had the Batman combat, or the free flow combat, as they describe it. They trademarked that too. This has basically become the combat system for, just superhero games now, because it's great, it's stylish, and it's very easy to just mash on it, but there is a level of skill required to get really good at it. It's a good feeling combat system. Essentially what it is, if you've never played one of these games, enemies will come at you in hordes. and you have just a regular attack button. You have one attack button. You'll beat up on an enemy, and then you have another one. Well, it's not like in a lot of beat 'em ups, it'll just be like the other enemies just kind of like stand to the side while you're beating someone up. Here, you'll get like at least one enemy attacking you, and you have to press another button to counter. You have an attack button and a counter button. Every subsequent hit you get adds to your combo counter. And then once it gets to a certain threshold, you unlock new like special moves, like a special throw or a special takedown that you can do. You can use your gadgets in combat. You can toss batarangs to kind of stun enemies, and it will keep your combo counter up. You can use the grapple hook to hook enemies towards you and just like quickly engage them. There's like variations on the enemy. Variations are basically like there's a bunch of standard guys, and there's guys with like heavier weapons, like a pipe or a bat or something. There are like high security inmates who are basically guys who you can't attack them until you stun them with your cape. You have a little cape flap move that'll stun them, and that makes them vulnerable. And then there's like guys with batons who you have to like leap over, like do your dodge move over, and then attack them from behind, or otherwise they'll always counter you with the stun baton. So you take like these couple variations of enemies and you throw them at the player in some kind of mix, and it ends up creating encounters that are pretty fun. Again, right? Like again, yeah, you can mash through a decent amount of the game, but it highly rewards you for actually sitting down to learn a little bit of how the combat works. And I could definitely feel myself getting a lot better at it. So number one, there's straight up like a timing system. It's like a rhythm game almost, where if you just delay, it's not very hard to hit either. If you just delay your attack a little bit, like if you hit someone and then you time your next attack to be just after, like the beat after you hit the enemy, your next attack will be like a critical hit, and it has a higher chance to just knock them down. So here's the way that the combat kind of stacks up. Basically, the game will never throw a single enemy at you. It'll always be at least two, and usually more. So it only takes one enemy is very easy to beat. You just like punch. Every enemy will get knocked down in like three hits. And then from there, you can do like a takedown on them. Where it gets complicated is, yeah, you can take someone down in just like a punch. But maybe while you're doing that, before you can hit your third punch, someone's going to come swinging at you with a bat. So you have to do like punch, counter, punch, and then like batarang someone else to keep the combo counter up. Punch. And now there's a guy with a baton. You got to jump over him. Punch. And like you're continuously having to keep the combo counter up, because so you're incentivized to keep the counter up because you get a big multiplier on your score. And the more points you get, points will be used to, number one, it replenishes your health, which is very Super Mario. And number two, once you reach a certain point threshold, you get to buy an upgrade. And the upgrades are very good. A lot of them are really good. It'll be like, there'll be just, make your health bar longer. But there's lots of like new upgrades for gadgets, things that help you find secrets better. Upgrades to your gadgets that are make them better in combat and better, more utility in the exploration parts of the game. So like you want those upgrades, and getting higher scores helps you get them faster. Plus it keeps your health up. So you're kind of incentivized to, plus it just feels good. It feels good to face like a dozen enemies and beat them without taking a single hit. That's a really fun feeling because it's flashy, but it does take some amount of skill and a lot of like situational awareness. I would say that's situational awareness and planning are the two skills that the combat system rewards a lot, because you have to be aware of what is going on around you. You have to be turning the camera around to make sure you're not losing sight of any enemies who might be coming around to interrupt you, to smack you up. And you have to be planning around like, okay, you have to be planning like 1 or 2 steps ahead, because after I'm done hitting this guy, what am I going to do after that to keep my counter up? Because I can't let too long pass in between hits. So you're like forming a game plan of like, I can do this, then I can do that, and then I'll jump over to these guys, and then, oh, well, something happened that I wasn't expecting. Now I have to change the plan a little bit. That stuff is exciting. That stuff is interesting to me. You have all these tools, and you're forced to use them in interesting ways. There are some cool stealth kill sections where the essentially, you know, part of Batman is that, you know, the weakness of Batman is, well, it's guns, you know? If Batman's going up against a gun, he doesn't have that much he can do against that. So you'll enter these big rooms where all the enemies are armed, and you can't progress until you take out every single enemy. But if you just take them on like usual, they're going to get alerted to you and just light you up full of bullets. So you have to basically stealth through the whole thing. And that stuff is fun. That stuff was cool to me. Because the rooms are typically laid out. I almost wish they were harder. Like, I wish there were more enemies, because there's all these different ways that you can interact and sneak around the environment. There's like lots of room for cover in a lot of these rooms. There's grates that you can drop into and like go underneath the vents. There's or like under the ground and then like pop up. There's usually like vents that you can crawl through to kind of give you alternate routes around the space. There are like gargoyles that you could do. Oh, I love it. You can when you're on a gargoyle, you have all these unique options of, you can do like a glide kick. Actually, you can do that from like any kind of perch that you're on. So you can do like a glide kick where you'll just fly down and then kick someone and then just automatically stun them and put them on the ground. You unlock one of the upgrades it's called the inverted takedown, where when you're on the gargoyle, you can like hold the crouch button and you'll hang off like a bat. And then if an enemy walks underneath you, you can rappel down, grab them, and then pull them back up and hang them from their leg off of the gargoyle. It's great. The way that the enemies interact is really fun as you're doing it. Because you'll be able to like, they'll find like the body on the ground, and then they'll like call the other ones over, and then there'll maybe be like one straggler who's like keeping watch in the corner or something, and that's when you take out him, and they'll like communicate back and forth, and sometimes they'll just stick together and be like back to back, and sometimes they'll be like, every man for himself, and then they just run off from each other and abandon each other. And it does feel like you're this silent killer hunting, well, maybe not killer because it's Batman, but you know, this silent hunter in the shadows, causing chaos and fear, right? Like Batman strikes fear into his enemies. And you feel that sensation growing the more and more of them that you pick off. It's really cool. So yeah, the combat, it's really fun. Just really tight system. Rewards good timing. Rewards planning ahead. Being aware of what's going on around you. Really fun. Like, I was always looking forward to the combat. I was looking forward to the combat because I was like, oh man, I want to see, like, what am I going to be able to do next? You know? What's, like, the highest combo counter I can get and stuff like that. Here's the problem. It's a great combat system for group fights. The game is not built for one-on-one brawls. And that is kind of a problem when you're playing a Batman game, or when you're designing a Batman game, And you're kind of expected to have boss fights against the famous Batman villains. So this game infamously has a problem with boss fights. And it is definitely earned. The developers try, you can feel like, I feel like they were aware of it because you can feel them trying to work around this limitation. Like they knew that the combat system doesn't hold up in just a one-on-one. So they always add like, okay, what are the main villain showdowns, right? Like the first big one you get is Bane. And what is Bane's thing? He charges at you, you throw a batarang at him while he's running, and then he runs into a wall and hurts himself, and then you get to punch him a few times. And then intermediately, like in between sections of his health bar, he'll call down a bunch of goons for you to fight, like the combat system's actually designed for. And it's fine. It's just, it's okay. It's like a regular battle, but with a little like twist on it, and it's okay. Harley Quinn, you don't actually fight Harley. She just sends goons after you. She just sends a bunch of enemies after you. And the fight itself is kind of neat. It's on this arena with 3 different sections, and each one has an electrified floor. And as one turns on, another will turn off, and you have to like run to the other one. And it's like, okay, there's like, again, it's like a regular fight with a little twist. But you don't actually fight Harley. And it's like, I kind of wish that I could actually fight the character. Scarecrow is just a stealth section. The Scarecrow stuff in this game is great. Just like visually, I loved the sections of like the fear gas sections. You could maybe say, I could see someone finding the actual stealth sections a little simple and not amazing. But I think like visually and they were doing with the reality warping, really cool stuff. Like again, exactly what I would want out of a Scarecrow sequence. So that was good. But it's just you're going through a stealth section in like a nightmare, and then you get to the end and you shine a spotlight on him, and that's the fight? ? Right? Like they're working around it. Killer Croc, I think, was the most disappointing for me because he's not even a fight. He's really lame in this game, which kind of sucks because I love Killer Croc. He's a big crocodile guy. And what does he do in this game? Well, you're in his lair, and there's all of these wooden platforms that you have to walk along. And if you walk too fast or you run, you make a noise, and he pops up and he runs at you, and you just have to, whenever he pops up, you just throw a batarang at his collar, and he just goes, ah! And he falls into the water because you activated his shock collar. And it's like, okay, all right. Like, you never actually fight him. He's basically just an environmental hazard, and it's just like kind of disappointing because like you're doing something. The objective is that you're trying to collect these samples from his lair, and it's just kind of lame. It's just like disappointing. But it's like, how else would they have done it? I don't know. That's what they came up with. And then the last boss fight is really shitty. It's like an infamously bad final boss. Like really stupid, schlocky, fucking steroid Joker. It's so dumb. Actually, the first time I got to it, the game bugged out on me. You go from like the inside of one building to the roof of it. That's the idea. Like the boss fight, you start on the roof. But I didn't get the cutscene. It didn't play the cutscene, so it just hard loaded me into the boss arena with Steroid Joker standing there, but like not moving, just A-posing. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on? And I had to restart from the last checkpoint, and then the cutscene played to tell me what the hell was going on. And then the last fight is just like embarrassingly easy. It is so. The fight before it is actually harder. The fight before it is basically like you're fighting regular enemies, but there's 2 Banes added into the mix, and it's actually pretty tough. Like it really gave me a run for my money. I had to try it quite a few times, and then you get to the actual Joker fight, the climax of the game, And you fight a couple guys, and then you drag him down you pull him down with the bat claw, and then you punch him a few times when he's stuck in the floor for some reason. And then he gets up, and then you run away from him for a second, and then he jumps back up onto the ledge, and then sends a bunch of guys down at you, and it's not even like a hard mix of enemies either. And then you just do that 3 times, and it's like really lame and easy. Very disappointing. Yeah, definitely an era, I feel like, of shitty bosses. I remember that was around the time that there was that, our boss fights are just this outdated thing that just, boss fights suck, and they're just really archaic. And all it was that there was just a bunch of games that had shitty boss fights. And this is definitely one of them. Yeah. And it really is just a problem with the combat system. It's great, but just not for boss fights. And you're making a Batman game, so, you kind of want to have boss fights, right? Like, it's just a natural, normal thing that you want to include as a designer. But yeah, I mean, even just the way that they handled the Joker thing, like, Joker is not a character. When you think of Joker versus Batman, it's not a slugfest, right? It's not a punch out. It's a battle of Joker. Like, usually the best supervillains, like the greatest arch nemeses, are the ones who are able to put like the heroes in the most impossible situations. It isn't always just like brute physical force that they have to overcome. It's literally like, it's like the Joker puts Batman in a situation where you can only do one of 2 things, and someone's gonna die, and like that's when Batman is under the most duress. You're not worried about Batman being able to beat up the Joker. Like, yeah, of course he can. I would have preferred if it was some kind of sequence where, yeah, like there was some, Batman had to make some kind of ultimatum, and then you figure out an alternate, like basically like a trolley problem, but then you figure out, oh, there's a way that I can get both, There's a way that we can, I can win both ends of this dilemma he's put me in. And then at the end, just fucking give one punch to Joker and knock him out. That's what I would prefer. Yeah, but overall, like, that's a minor gripe. It's not a huge part of the game. 90% of the game, great. Really fun. I loved exploring Arkham Island. I loved getting the gadgets. Man, like, you don't realize how good, when you get that zip line is really strong for just transportation. Like, you can really just go anywhere as long as there's a wall behind you and a wall in somewhere off in the distance. Like, it is very, very freeing. And you get to explore so much of the island after that. Finding all the Riddler trophies was fun. Figuring out the individual, like, a lot of them are like just the trophies, but I really liked the ones that were where you actually had to figure out a riddle based on the room. Like, it'd be like, oh, who is this? Or what does this thing have? And then you're like, oh, wait, hang on. And then you find like a poster or a plaque or a painting or something like that, or a newspaper clipping on the wall. And you pick that out and you're like, oh, is it this thing? And you scan it. And then you get a little reward for it. And there's a ton of little like tapes, which are like interviews with the asylum inmates. That gives you this background. Some of them have like there's like 5 for each inmate, and a lot of them tell some like good stories. Like, oh, if you like Zaz gets like a surprising amount of play in this game. The Voice of Arkham. That's a great little collectible series where there's these like plaques or there's these like statue things around, like hidden in very obscure, like inside of walls and stuff around the asylum. And you scan them and you get these audio recordings that like weaves this strange intergenerational story, but it's all the quote unquote voice of Arkham. Like the voice of Amadeus Arkham speaking to you, but it's almost like it's being it's existing and observing things throughout time, or it's having experiences well after, he would have been dead. And so it's like, there's like this whole mystery associated with it. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure when this came out, this was like this was the hypest shit. Because it was such a well executed concept. Definitely a game that is worth going back to. And something it makes me really excited to play City. Now, I am not the biggest open world guy, but if there's enough fun, interesting stuff to do in the world, and it's not filled with too much, busy work, I can get into it. Like, I liked New Vegas because there was usually something cool. There's usually some cool, you didn't have to do too much walking before you found some sort of interesting location with a little storyline, or just a cool looking place to do some scavenging in. And that held up a lot of the experience for me. The writing and the little points of interest. I thought it was the map was great. So hopefully City has more of that for me. So totally recommend, definitely worth going back to and checking out. Just a very fun, short, again, like 17-hour experience. I finished it in a couple sittings. Always feel like I was making progress. There was like 1 or 2 times where I got stuck. I had to look up a couple of the Riddler things on the internets. Just because some of them were honestly very obscure. And there were a few points where, like, okay, there was like one point where this is a game where it's going to teach you to look up, because there's like grapple points that I would have never seen. I would have never seen if I didn't look them up. And I was just like, where the fuck do I go? Oh, I just have to grapple to a point that's up there. Cool. Yeah, Arkham Asylum. Check it out. Holds up very well, in my opinion.